Talking politics, leaders of Labour Party, including presidential candidate Peter Obi and Governor of Abia State Alex Otti, were at the headquarters of the Independent National Electoral Commission earlier today. Now, the party wants the electoral body to recognize Nenadi Usman as its chairman, days after the Supreme Court set aside the judgment of the Court of Appeal in Abuja, recognizing Julius Abure as the national chairman. The party leaders visited NEC headquarters after its National Executive Council meeting in Abuja, which also had in attendance senators, House of Representative members, and governorship candidates from Edo and Imo states. Well, let's get back to that conversation on the Labour Party. We are joined now by former legal advisor of the Labour Party Caretaker Committee in Ogun State, Oluwafemi Biayo. He joins me on the news at 7. Good to have you join us.
Yes, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
So we're seeing so many movements in your party, but without any resolution. Now we're hearing of 2 different NEC in the Labour Party. I just want to first get your reaction to what's going on and what side you belong to and think is right in the matter.
Well, I belong to the side that stands with the rule of law and justice, which is really the one of the hallmarks of our party and the ideology of our party, the Labour Party. And so the Labour Party has always been a respectable and a party that stands for social justice and the rule of law. So, and the basis of our constitution remains what is crucial and the bedrock of everything that we do. Being a party that we ourselves are to be part of and to provide leadership to them so that they can entrust us with political power to give guidance to them. So if internally we cannot ourselves do things in accordance with what our constitution stipulates, then in what manner, on what basis will the people, the populace of Nigeria expect to rely on us if we're in power to be able to provide them effective leadership in line with the law? So for us, that is crucial, that whatever we do must comply with due process in line with the specific terms of our constitution before it can be considered valid or not. Sentiments aside.
But Mr. Ibiayo, what is due process in this matter? Because here is a Supreme Court judgment that is now subject to interpretation. For the Abure-led faction, they say it doesn't nullify his leadership, but the Obi-led faction seem to think that it does, and they are now asking the INEC to recognize Nenadi Usman. What's your interpretation of that Supreme Court judgment? Well,
the Supreme Court judgment itself is very clear. It's a judgment itself that is predicated upon an action. The action itself has already been held, even at the court of first instance, where it originated, has not even been, being without, to have been initiated with due process and jurisdiction. You see, the Court of Appeal itself has held that much, that the action itself lacks jurisdiction because there was a feature in it that prevented courts in Nigeria from interfering to determine the issues that are involved in it. Now, ordinarily, that action in the court of first instance would probably have scaled to, idea being that it's coming in from the side of the Nenadi Usman camp to have joined in the matter. But that notwithstanding, the court has held clearly that that action itself lacks jurisdiction. If that is the case, it means even the further pronouncements of the Court of Appeal, as the Supreme Court has rightly held, they amounted to nullity, to placing something on nothing, because the original action itself was incompetent. And if that is the case, it means even the Supreme Court itself lacks a basis to make any form of pronouncement concerning the central issues of leadership of the party. What the Court of Appeal did, in my personal view, was that they also recognized what the Supreme Court has said, that the lower court lacked jurisdiction. and that if at all there is anything that is even happening concerning the status of the leadership of the party, it will be the status quo that had existed before the action filed that will determine the issue. I agree with the Supreme Court that maybe the Court of Appeal should not have gone to that extent to have made that obiter.
Mr. Abiayo, I have a few minutes left, and I have one or two questions, but I want us to be very quick in answering. Does it mean that you are saying that Julius Abure is a status quo and should remain the party national chairman?
That is the status quo. Nothing, you see, before an action is filed anywhere, there is always a state of affairs that nobody can change. That is reality. Just like me and you are speaking now, is a state of affairs. If we leave the studio now and something else happens, and you need to take me to court, it is based on the state of affairs that was existing that will determine everything. The state of affairs that existed before the action was filed was that there was a national convention that had been duly held, and already even that had been in action or decision of the Court of Appeal, which today has not been set aside. Now, whatever that may be, the fact still remains that both the Supreme Court that lack jurisdiction to make any pronouncements on whether or not that status quo has been altered or not applies both to the Supreme Court as well as to the Court of Appeal. So, as we are speaking today, there is a situation where all the litigations that commenced at the Federal High Court is as good as if they never commenced, because the Supreme Court has made that clear. So if that is the case, it means we are back to the state of affairs, the status quo that was in place before the issues were taken to court, even before the Nenadi Usman caretaker committee came into being as a so-called purported
Mr. Abiayo, we do have to leave it there, but if it's River State is anything to go by, we realize that court judgments are not enough to resolve crisis anymore in the country. We'll see how your party, if you see how your party will resolve this particular crisis. I'm sorry, we do have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure we'll speak to you over and over again. The former legal advisor to the caretaker committee, Labour Party caretaker committee in Ogun State. Abiayo, thank you for your time. Oluwafemi Abiayo.
My pleasure.